We are live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gathering Paracast. My name is Heidi.
And I'm Stephanie. And welcome to another Wednesday.
And gathering around the metaphysical table.
Yes.
And we are very excited to have our guest with us tonight, Robert Peterson, Bob Peterson. And welcome to our show tonight.
Yeah, welcome.
Hi, Heidi. Hi, Steph. Thanks for having me on the show. It's a real pleasure.
It's always fun to have you on our show.
Yes. And
it's been a while.
It's been a while. And, we've known you.
Back then, you were doing just the audio, I think. You weren't doing the television.
It was the radio show.
Congrats on the upgrade to the format.
Yeah, thank you.
It's hard to get used to, as we found out.
It's weird, actually. It's really weird.
But we've known you for a long time, Bob. I think I met you for the first time when we went to Waverly Hills. Remember that investigation? We all were there.
Yeah, that was a paranormal investigation there.
That's right.
And I still have the T-shirt. Yeah, and lots of pictures. And that was fun. With the whole crew there.
It was a fun night. Yep.
Yeah.
It was very fun.
Awesome. So we're going to start by pulling an oracle card tonight. Bob, we told you that we do this, and so we're going to have you help us with this one. This week, I'm using the Kuan Yin oracle, and I thought, we could all use a little divine feminine compassion right now, just in general. So I thought this will be a good deck to work with. I'll just read a couple of sentences out of the whatever card that comes up. But Bob, if you can go ahead and tell me when to stop, and I'll just pick whatever the top card is. So
all right, 3, 2, 1, stop.
Okay, here we go.
Okay,
and I had shuffled them really well before the show. So let's see here. Here, I'll let you show that to the
Gates of Heaven. Ooh.
Kind of a haunting looking card, isn't it?
Can you see that? It is very haunting looking.
What's the number on that one? Is there
12?
12. Okay,
12.
Thanks. Okay, Gates of Heaven. Yeah, it is kind of a haunting little card.
It is.
Well, let's see what it says. Okay. Yeah. So this is for everybody that's watching or listening, wherever it takes you, kind of process it as you want. Sometimes we need help sometimes we need to help beings find their way to the light. They can get attached to earthly energies, people, places, or things. Like trying to enter a forbidden city, they attempt to reside where they should not, within the light of the human energy field, rather than progressing spiritually on their own journey through the gates of heaven into a higher consciousness of bliss. Sometimes this happens because although the journey can occur to the consciousness of the lower vibrational being, it doesn't seem possible. You may consciously sense attachments or a spiritual presence that is not of the highest vibration and needs to be released from your energy field. This may be because old energies that you need to release that do not belong to you, or even from energetic influences. A healing process will help you, even if you're unaware of why you are feeling the way you do. That's kind of an interesting little card. I didn't even know that one was in this deck. And it kind of fits with what we do here.
Yes.
The paranormal and metaphysical. I guess I was looking for a card of like Kuan Yin compassion, and we get one about paranormal and attachments. Right?
Well, yeah.
That's interesting because
like crazy.
That's interesting, and it kind of fits with everything that I know, because I've got a kind of a statue, if you will, of Kuan Yin in my bathroom in Minnesota. And anyway, so I do kind of relate to that feminine energy in a lot of ways. But how I read that is, my specialty and my pet topic has always been out-of-body experiences, as you know. And I can never get enough of them, and I can never get enough of reading about them and talking about them, and you get me started. But a lot of people who have out-of-body experiences talk about doing soul retrievals, finding people who are kind of stuck in negative situations in the afterlife and having to do soul retrievals. And like Bruce Moen the late Bruce Moen, he's no longer with us, had a series of like 5 or 6 books in which he talked about doing soul retrievals. And it's kind of very interesting stuff. I have some interesting things happen with regard to soul retrievals. I haven't been directly involved in that, but I don't know if I've ever shared this before, but with you guys anyway. But I've had these run-ins with what I think of as kind of like biblical angels. It's these light beings, and they're very secretive, and they take us out of our body. At least people who are able to leave their bodies. A lot of times they'll take us out of body and bring us to places to help people, like do soul retrievals and that kind of thing. But most of the time we're unconscious at the time because our conscious awareness just interferes with the process. And for example, become conscious by accident and been surrounded by these light beings. And I'm looking around like, what's going on? And one of the light beings says, "Oh crap, he's conscious again." And another one says, "Well, put him back under." And then I'll lose all awareness, gone. But I've had some experiences in which they've taken me and I've become conscious again by accident when I was in the process of trying to do a soul retrieval. And it's interesting stuff. People don't realize that we all have kind of secret lives when we sleep at night. People, some people I think that are in certain situations just leave their body during sleep to recharge, but other people with a lot of energy, they actually leave their body during the sleep, certain areas of the sleep cycle, and they go out on these missions and help these light beings accomplish different tasks. And it's all very interesting stuff.
Wow, that's so that I guess this card is like super appropriate for tonight then.
It is. It's very appropriate.
Nicely done. You picked it.
Yeah, that's very appropriate. It's funny, I don't believe in accidents and mistakes. It's like everything happens for a reason, and everything is meant to teach us. I tend to think of everything that surrounds us as like a metaphor, telling us or showing us something that we should do or be or see or learn in our lives. And I think that's very important.
Nice. Yeah.
You just got to look for those signs, right?
Yep. Yes. So let's get down to what you're doing, what you're working on. And if you could give people just the elevator speech on your background, like your out-of-body experience background.
Okay. Yeah, so I've been doing out-of-body experiences since 1979. And in July of that year, my brother Joe gave my dad a copy of Robert Monroe's book, Journeys Out of the Body. And I borrowed it. And then later that year, I finished it and decided, well, I was a very scientific and skeptical kind of guy, and I still am. But I decided, well, let's try his procedure, because he never said, take my word for it, this is how it is. He said, try it yourself. And so I did. And so I tried his Monroe's technique, and I got results, much to my surprise. And that kind of led me down this rabbit hole of out-of-body experiences. And I had to learn more about them because, none of the science books ever talked about them at the time. And none of my religious beliefs ever talked about them. And so it's like the only way I can really trust what's going on is my own personal experience. So I decided to learn how to have these out-of-body experiences, and collected every book I could on the subject. I still have a collection of it's probably about 250 books now on the subject.
Wow.
And a lot of those I've reviewed and put on my website and on my blog. But anyway, that's the elevator speech. I've since then, since 1979, I've had probably, I don't know, many hundreds, maybe more than 1,000 out-of-body experiences. And that may sound like a lot, but you got to bear in mind that a lot of these are just, it's like paddleball. I go through this lengthy procedure to leave my body, and I get out there, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm sucked back in. And so there isn't much. I've had quite a few more involved experiences, which I tried to document in my books. I've written 5 books, 3 of which are about out-of-body experiences. And it's been pretty wild. But my latest book is called Hacking the Out-of-Body Experience, and it's basically a scientific approach to the out-of-body experience. So it's trying to leverage science and trying to use science to tell what actually happens to the body and to the physical brain when an out-of-body experience occurs. And we can leverage that. For example, a common example that I often use is scientists know that gamers, people who play a lot of video games, are more prone to having out-of-body experiences. Now, why is that? It's because they're able to shift their focus from the external outside world to kind of this other story of experience that the game is. And that shifting of awareness back and forth is conducive to out-of-body experience. So that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about in hacking the out-of-body experience. As far as what I've been working on lately, I started on a sequel to that book because since the book was published, I think it was published in late 2018, maybe 2019. And since then, I've been publishing all kinds of blog articles with additional things that I've found out about the out-of-body experience. And I've been putting them out on my blog, and I found this stuff out, and this is the, anyway, some cool stuff. And I thought, well, someday I should compile that into a sequel to Hacking the Out-of-Body Experience. So I started working on that. In January of last year, I retired from my career. And I kind of made the decision that now that I'm retired, I'm going to write what I want to write about rather than just another rehash, another out-of-body experience book or whatever. And as much as I enjoy doing that, and I'm still doing the research, I'm also spending a lot of time on creative fiction and working on a new novel. So been giving a lot of talks, lectures on out-of-body experiences. Matter of fact, I've got one coming up on April 13th for a group in the Villages, which is in Central Florida. And the group is called Psychics, Mediums, and Ghost Stories. And I'll be giving a talk there April 13th, which is, I believe, a Sunday. That's the title of that is Down the Rabbit Hole. And so I'm going to go into some of my more strange out-of-body experiences and what we can infer from that, So
busy. Just writing a couple books.
That's right.
Doing all these talks. It's a good thing you're not working.
Yeah. Where would you find the time?
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I bought a home down in Florida and moved there about 3.5 years ago. And so we've been here in the Villages, which is the world's largest 55 plus community. And it's over 150,000 people here. And there are more than 3,000 different special interest groups. And boy, if there's an interest you have, there's probably a group for it, including I gave a talk last year about this time for the there's like 3 different Edgar Cayce groups here in the Villages. And I gave a talk that was very well received, and it went over some of the proof. But I was comparing Edgar Cayce's special abilities to normal out-of-body experiences. Because if you look at Edgar Cayce and what he did, he mostly tapped into a resource that he called the Akashic Records, which he described as like a giant library where he met someone and they would send him a book concerning someone that he was interested in reading, and he would go through this book and learn all about them from this book in the Akashic Records. And that account is very strikingly similar to some of the out-of-body experience books. I believe Kensho, name of an author, wrote a book on out-of-body experiences, and he described a very similar thing. So my talk was kind of geared toward, was Edgar Cayce having out-of-body experiences, and what are the similarities? And it's amazing how many similarities there are. And so my belief is that we all have access to that ability. You don't need an intermediary between you and the divine. You don't need a priest or a cleric or a rabbi or imam or anyone to get between you and God. I think all the information we have on the afterlife and the supernatural, if you will, comes from someone's out-of-body experience, and we all have access to that. And anyway, that's my stint. So been kind of my focus.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's so interesting to hear about people's experiences. You've shared some in the past. Have you? So I think when we had you on the show, it was after you had your Hacking the Out of Body Experience book.
Yeah.
Maybe we've had you on twice since that one came out.
Yep.
But I love hearing some of the experiences that people share with you. Do you have any that are from the recent years? Any experiences that someone has shared with you that you could share with us? Or your own, even too.
Well, like I said, I'm not sure. I mean, I've read a lot of books from people, and they all have striking similarities. And they have an experience. They describe usually the same things. One of the more striking experiences that I have, that I've had in my second book, Lessons Out of the Body, comes from another guy named Chris Hazlitt, and he had what most people would describe as a near-death experience. And he left his body, and he had this experience of oneness with the universe, where he thought of himself as everything. It seemed like his conscious awareness encompassed all of creation. And so he had this universal experience, and that's coveted by a lot of people out there who described the same thing and had a very similar experience. Mary Dioma is another book she has a book called Loved, in which she was going through a particularly emotional time in her life, and she was driving her car, and all of a sudden she had a experience where it was like an experience, it wasn't near death, and she experienced, and it's hard for people to relate when they come to something like, I know Chris Hazlitt from my second book, he came back from that experience, and he had a hard time distinguishing his own conscious awareness from other people's. So, for example, he had a hard time reintegrating into the workplace. He would go to work, and he'd be in meetings, and they'd ask, something about, somebody else, and he would immediately identify as that other person because he was everybody at that point. And
Wow.
so he would think in terms of, I did this. Oh no, that wasn't you, that was her. Well, but I was her. I was everybody.
Right.
I'm, just reintegrating, being back in one body and one person, and because the experience is out there. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, like I said, I've had some of these run-ins with these light beings, and those are always fascinating. I've had some very emotional ones of those that where, they're too emotional for me to want to go into in a talk now. I had a very hard time sharing that with even with my wife when it happened, one of the experiences. But anyway, that's the amazing thing about out-of-body experiences is it's a universal, right? It doesn't pick on any religion or faith or creed or it doesn't care about male or female. It doesn't care, what culture you grew up in. It's universal, and it's throughout time. Everyone throughout time has described these experiences, and that's what makes them truly interesting. Is it's universal. But yeah, a lot of people out there are having all kinds of different weird experiences. And there's been, when I was first doing this in 1979 and 1980, when I started doing it, there weren't very many books on the subject. There was maybe a dozen. And now, like I said, there's over 250 books on it. And there are good books coming out all the time on the subject. I've got a stack of what I call emotional support out-of-body books that I go to and read once in a while. And I've been doing book reviews on my blog. One of my favorites recent years is there's a book called Odyssey of the Soul by Frank Labatt, who's a friend of mine who lives in France, and some very interesting stuff there. Everybody's got their own kind of unique perspective on the experience, and it's all good. And that's also why I'm not real eager to dive into this new book and try and finish it and get it out on the market is there's a lot of good quality material out there now on the subject. And, I'm not sure they needed another voice. So,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, your book, I read Hacking the Out of Body Experience, and I think it's a great book for someone who wants to learn more about like how to do this and what to expect. And I mean, it's a great resource.
if you're looking at how to do it, that's probably the go-to manual. However, most people, I recommend most people start with my first book, which is Out of Body Experiences, How to Have Them and What to Expect. And the reason is because that explains what I went through and how I learned these things. And there are lots of exercises. There's an exercise after every chapter. And then there's a chapter 24 is just the main technique that I like. That first book, Out of Body Experiences, was just released, I'm proud to say, on Audible. So it's now an audiobook so people can listen to it. And I mean, it's historically, it's been my most popular book, and it's actually been translated. It's not only available in English, but also German and Japanese, Russian, and a couple Slavic languages. I had somebody translate it into Polish, but I don't think it's been published in Polish, but I've got the text. So anyway, it's a lot of people throughout the world have found value in that first book of mine. So
Fantastic.
That's where I usually recommend people start.
So, and I'm thinking of the audiobook, right? And so that would be something you'd want to listen to at home, because then you could go right into maybe trying an out-of-body experience. Like you say, you've got these, these pauses where you can, and exercises where you can do it yourself. Don't listen to it when you're in the car.
Yeah, well,
right. Driving.
For obvious reasons, yeah.
You accidentally slide into an out-of-body experience while you're driving. And
yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, definitely don't listen. Don't do the exercises when you're driving.
No,
but a lot of the chapters are just explaining what I went through at the time and what I saw, and it's like, oh wow, this is different. And I never, having read all these books before I actually started having the experiences, like none of the books ever said this had happened, kind of thing. So it kind of showcases what I went through, and it's more interesting. The hacking book is good if you want to try it yourself. It's basically just techniques, and there's a solid science foundation behind it.
So what made you want to do the out of body experience in the first place and learn more about it and actually do it?
Well, it was kind of a scientific curiosity thing. It's because I read this Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe. He made all of these wild claims about leaving his body and flying over the rooftops, and even, trying to get in another person's physical body and things like that he had done and seen, and meeting up with these, non-physical entities and spirits and all of this stuff. And I mean, to me, as a science-oriented guy, it just seemed way too outlandish. To me, it just didn't make much sense. But if it's true, any good scientist will suspend disbelief and check on, they'll do their own research. And that's kind of what led me into this, is I decided to try Monroe's technique, one of them that he described in the book. And I immediately got the vibrations, which is it's a very shocking, realistic experience. It literally felt like I was being electrocuted. And it was just an eye-opening experience. It's like, wow, maybe Monroe wasn't lying after all. Maybe these weren't, just dreams or his imagination. It was really in your face, very realistic. And it's like, I knew the only way that I could find out for myself is to do it myself, because, you can read 100 books or 200 books, and it's not the same as doing it yourself. And even if you read 200 books, you're going to find different people disagreeing on certain points. And that's one of the reasons I do these book reviews. I've done a whole bunch of book reviews, probably more than 100. I'm sure it's over 100, or like 130 book reviews. And some people criticize me and say, well, aren't you just slamming your competition? Well, no, there's a lot of good information out there and a lot of bad information. And I want to point people to the good information. Like I said, Frank Labatt's book, Robert Monroe's book, William Buhlman's books. I mean, there's lots of good information out there, and I give credit when credit is due. But yeah, I had to find out for myself, the legitimacy of that experience, and it is quite astounding. It's very, very realistic.
Wow.
By the way, my favorite author on the subject is Jürgen Zive. He's got several books, but my favorite is Multidimensional Man. And again, you can read a book review of it on my website, where I've got a pointer to my blog.
Multidimensional.
That's cool. That's a cool title.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I just think this whole topic is really interesting. And I've had quite a few of my own experiences too. So I believe 100%. And I think what you're saying about anybody can do it is true. It just takes maybe some practice. I think your mind, again, depending on how you're thinking about it or believing it can be done or not, might affect how it goes or doesn't in the beginning.
Right. Yeah. Your belief system. Now, when I did Monroe's technique, I was definitely not a believer. So you don't need to believe in the experience to have it. All you need is suspension of disbelief and give it a chance. Obviously, if you're a skeptic, it helps to have a suspension of disbelief. It helps to allow for the possibility. Because if your mind is closed and you just, don't think this is going to work, you can shut yourself off of the experience. And there are books like Rick Stack's book, for example. He was one of the direct disciple, if you will. Disciple is not the good word, but he was one of the students of Jane Roberts, who channeled all the Seth books. Seth Speaks, Nature of Personal Reality. You guys know Jane Roberts and Seth? Anyway, Rick Stack wrote a book, and it's the entire focus of the book is changing your beliefs to change your reality in regard to out-of-body experiences and allowing them to happen and changing the way you think so that you can allow these experiences to happen.
Which I think could be helpful for a lot of things. Yeah. Really.
Yeah.
Yes, very much.
Yeah.
So,
we have so many people in our chat room tonight. I'm just wondering if any of you out there who are watching this, any of you had out of body experiences? Type it in the chat. Because I think, I'd be afraid of getting sidelined and never coming back.
Well,
which is probably why I've never done it. Right? I'm just that wild ADD spirited girl that just, I would not find my way back somehow.
Well, I don't think that's really a concern. And the reason is, I believe that we've got a higher self or an oversoul or whatever you want to call it. There's something greater than us. And that something, your higher self, has invested a great deal of time and energy creating a physical body for you as a focal point for your learning and your awareness and your teaching. In fact, we're all teachers, we're all learners, we're all students, and we all are experiencers. And it's invested a great deal of energy in creating that physical body. So it's not going to just let you wander off and not come back. One of my favorite quotes is from author Richard Bach, and there's a book called One. He wrote some great books, but in One, he has a quote about something to the effect of here's a simple test of how you can tell if your mission on Earth is complete. If you're alive, it's not complete. And it's like, we're all here for a reason. And I think we're always going to come back. So, I've gone so far out in my out-of-body experiences, like so far out into outer space, for example, and never had a problem coming back. It's just always been there. Matter of fact, one time I tried to left the body and I started shooting out into space, and I tried to fly to the sun as a scientific experiment, because that's kind of what I like to do. And I decided to try and fly to the sun. And I thought, well, so I started shooting toward the sun as fast as I could go. And what I didn't realize is I got, after a while, I got kind of bored and it's like, this isn't working. I'm going to quit. And I stopped. But that was only like 3 minutes into the experience or something. And I should have known that, the light, if you were traveling the speed of light, it would take like 6.5 minutes to get to the sun,
Mm-hmm.
at the speed of light. And some
Mm-hmm.
people say, well, when you're out of body, you can travel faster than the speed of light. Well, maybe that's a limitation in my belief system or something. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I do experience experiments like that, and with some interesting results.
So I have an interesting point to what, we're just talking about, where you're going to be able to come back, right? So I was talking to one of my spirit guides, and there was this interesting portal at a location that Tim and I were at. And I said to our spirit guide, I said, this would be, because of how different it was, I said, this might be a really interesting place to do like a meditation and go and explore. And he said, absolutely not. Do not do it. So basically, don't have an out of body experience here, because it would be like getting swept up in a riptide out into the ocean.
Oh.
And he said, there's nothing we can do to bring you back. You will not come back. He goes, this is like the one off. You cannot do it. And it's a physical location in the earth, with how it just like, it's all these shifting energies. And when they come to a certain point, and it doesn't last forever, it's always kind of shifting and moving, but there's like this sweet spot that happens every however often. I don't know how often, it's rare. But if by chance you're doing a meditation where you're going out of your body or whatever you're doing, and it hits that point, it's going to whisk you away and you're never going to come back. And it will basically be like your physical body is in a coma.
Oh.
Interesting.
Forever.
Yeah.
Till you die. I mean, that would be it.
I've never heard of other things like that, and that's part of my problem. Is my curiosity always gets the better of me. One time I had an out of body experience in which I left my body and I was about to go somewhere, and all of a sudden a big, like a some kind of portal, like a doorway shaped portal, kind of appeared in front of me. And I heard a voice saying, come on, let's go. And I said, where are we going? And it said, I forget what the year was, but he said, I think 2046 or something like that.
Ooh.
In the future.
Ooh.
And
Yeah.
so I'm the first guy to, walk through that doorway. And I saw some very interesting things, and I documented them. They're in my blog somewhere if you want to dig through it. But I saw like these. I expected to see like lots of cars and lots of people, and there weren't very many people or cars, and things like that. So it was different. But that's my problem. Is I'm the first guy to, I told my wife, if a flying saucer landed on my front lawn, I'd be right there knocking at the door and going up the ramp.
Same.
Going up the ramp.
Same.
Yeah.
I love it.
Let me in. And my wife, she's serious. She tells me if I leave my body and I see the light, don't go in it, because I want you back. But and I have seen various lights and things out there, but I've not gone into it at all or tried that. So
So your wife, Kathy, right? She doesn't do this. She doesn't do this.
No.
Yeah.
No, one time we took one of William Bielman's out of body classes when he was holding them at the time at the Monroe Institute. Monroe Institute was started by Robert Monroe, who wrote that Journeys Out of the Body that started me on my way. But we took William Bielman at one point was teaching classes there, and so we met him and all these other people, and some friends that I had already known. And she tried it then, but she had one experience in which she felt like she had a sudden sinking movement where she sunk down underneath her bed. But other than that, she didn't have any luck at it. And I think you have to, in a way, you have to learn to give up control. If you're a control freak and you're afraid of losing control, it's very difficult. And I know, because I'm kind of that way. It's really hard to surrender to the experience and not get uptight.
Once you've done it though, and you see like, hey, this is okay, you'd be maybe more apt to go in faster,
Mhm.
sooner, easier
Yeah,
next time.
A big part of it is most people are they're afraid. Fear is probably the biggest roadblock out there to the out of body experience, and a lot of people go into it and they're afraid of like Steph said,
Mm.
afraid of not being able to get back to their body, afraid of
Yeah.
like demonic possession, things like that, afraid of, okay, if I meet spirits, what are they going to do to me, or what are they going to say to me? Can they hurt me? That
Yeah.
kind of thing. You
Mhm.
know, that kind of stuff. And a lot of those fears are self-created, because if you believe that you're going to encounter negative entities or whatever, you can create that experience for yourself.
Mhm.
And you know, you'll be kind of, your vibrations will be low, and you'll kind of be more prone to having those kind of experiences. But
Mhm.
fear is the biggest block. Fear is the biggest thing to overcome. And yeah, you can rationalize it all you want and make lists of why you shouldn't be afraid, but when it actually comes down to it and you're feeling the vibrations and it feels like you're being electrocuted or whatever, and it's like it's in your face, you're there, and it's
Mhm.
really can be scary, because you're facing humankind's two biggest fears, which is fear of death and fear of the
Mhm.
unknown. And those are just
Mhm.
natural things. But the
Mm.
thing to understand is, like Heidi said, after you do it a few times, you kind of relax and say, okay, well, maybe I can just go a little further this time. And
Mhm.
after 100 out of body experiences, it's kind of like, yeah, okay, now I don't have to be so uptight about this anymore, And
Yeah.
so, and then, and you tend to have less scary experiences then if you go
Mhm.
about it with a positive attitude.
Yeah.
Wow.
Awesome. I love it. I love doing it.
Fascinating.
I think it's great.
It is fascinating. So we do have one comment that said she has they have but only a few. So
No details though.
no details. So I don't know if that means they were bad experiences or whatever, and they just didn't want to do it again, or who knows. But yeah, we've had
Very interesting.
yes, it's very interesting, and a lot of people must be.
Well, there's a lot to learn from it, and mostly it can be about ourselves and where we're going when we leave this life. We're all none of us like to think about, but to all of us eventually. And I believe it's better to be prepared. And some people say, they go to church or synagogue or whatever they believe in, and they think that they're covered and they know what's out there. But you got to remember that a lot of these beliefs come from thousands of years ago, and they've
Mhm.
been passed along by people who weren't speaking the same language. They didn't have our culture, so they had a different cultural interpretation of the experiences. So the best way, I'll never tell anyone what to believe, what they should believe. I believe you should try it yourself, and it's
Mhm.
available out there. Lots of information for free. My website, robertpeterson.org, has lots of information out there. It's all free, including the entire text of my first book in English. You can read it online if you want. And it's been that way since before its publication, 2 years before its publication. And it was published in 1997, if I remember right.
Mhm.
And so it was out on my website in 1995, believe it or not. But it's
Wow.
out there, and everyone can learn this skill and learn about, the afterlife for themselves.
Yeah,
That's
interesting.
fantastic.
So I'd be interested to know if anyone who's watching and listening and goes out there and actually has an experience, do let us know.
Yeah, let us know after you've maybe read
What you
Bob's
think.
first book
Yeah,
and you gave it a little try yourself and it worked.
yeah,
We'd love to hear
absolutely.
how it went. So give
Mhm.
us tune back into one of our chat rooms when we're doing a show and just let us
Yeah.
know. Follow up with us.
Especially like the paranormal smorgasbord would be perfect fodder for that.
Okay, so you all have to this week try an out of body experience and come back next
Oh!
Wednesday
And
in
tell
our
us
chat
how it
room.
went.
Tell us what happened.
Yeah.
You
Mm.
guys are
Let us
doing this
know.
every Wednesday, huh?
Yeah. Yep. Our
Wow.
show is every Wednesday.
And we have the
All right,
paranormal
well-
smorgasbord is the first Wednesday of every month. So that encompasses, Bob, everything.
Yeah.
Anything and everything.
So maybe next
Because-
week we'll talk about out of body experiences
Because
again.
maybe everybody out there now will be doing this, and then they'll send notes and say, "Oh my God, this is what happened." You just never
I'll have to put it on my calendar and
Yeah.
try to tune in.
and pipe in
'cause,
there.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, in case anybody has an experience that you need to ask some questions.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And we
Yeah, there you go.
have
Yeah.
a follow up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
This has been very fun. Thank you, Bob.
Yes.
Thanks for
Well,
coming
thank you
on.
for having me on the show. I really enjoy it. And I never get tired of talking about it, as you can probably tell.
Yeah,
It's
that's
been
good.
a lifelong interest of mine. And
Mhm.
I just, it never gets old.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
yeah.
if you want to check out Bob's work, robertpeterson.org. And he's got a whole, I mean, his website is amazing.
Yeah.
Lots of great information and
Yep.
resources. And if you try it, come back next week and let us know what happened.
Yes, please do. We want to know for sure. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you,
There's
Bob.
I just wanted to mention also, I'm active on Facebook a lot. There are a couple of very good Facebook groups out there. One of them I want to give a shout out to Simon Barraclough. He runs a group called Astral Projection Techniques, and there's
Ooh.
another group called Astral Projection,
Okay.
which is Phil Swain's group, and they both they've got, I think, I don't even remember how many. It's in the several tens of thousands of people in that group.
Wow.
It's very active. They've got, I don't know, 20 or more moderators for the group, and it's very helpful. They don't allow any negativity or riffraff or advertising or whatever. It's just people helping people with regard to out-of-body
Nice.
experience and astral projection. So do check those out. I frequent them often.
Good. We'll have to
That
check it
sounds
out.
Good. Yeah, for sure.
Great. Well, thank you. Thanks for
Thank
being
you,
with
guys.
us tonight.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime.
You'll be back.
Oh, for sure.
We'll have you back.
Yeah.
Sounds
and
good. Anytime, guys.
Yeah. And to all of you watching and listening to our podcast or watching the video, thank you for joining us. And for the troops that may be watching or listening, thank you for your service, and please be safe.
Yes. And we definitely would love to have you come back and join us around the metaphysical table again here on the Gathering Paracast. And thank you to Jason Trost, our producer, who is absolutely amazing and pulls us all together every week. And we really, really appreciate you.
Yeah, we couldn't do it without you.
And Cryptovania TV. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys here next week for our Paranormal Smorgasbord.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.